Hello everybody, welcome to Startup Bridge Canada Roadshows. Bonjour tout le monde, soyez le bienvenu aux Roadshows de Startup Bridge Canada. I'm Mitali Bandekar, Director Corporate Development and International at Startup Réseau. At Startup Réseau, we set up and operate different formats of startup accelerators and market access programs. Canada has been a long-term partner by virtue of legacy relationships of the company and its founders. As a build-up to the main program, which we will be talking about shortly, we are hosting a series of 4 roadshows over the next 4 days, starting today, to provide some insights on the Canadian startup ecosystem and business opportunities that exist for Indian startups. We have an exciting lineup of speakers scheduled for the next 4 days. Today, to start off proceedings, we have with us Dr. Hugh Hind for our opening keynote. Dr. Hind is currently the CTO at Quadrical AI, which uses AI techniques to help solar companies with yield forecasting, increasing generation, and managing O&M costs. Prior to Quadrical, Dr. Hind was a founder of Cognitive Systems, a startup using AI in the Wi-Fi space, and before that, a VP at BlackBerry, where he was one of the people responsible for designing the BlackBerry smartphone secure communication system. His interest in AI goes back to being a PhD student at Cambridge University. He also has a master's degree in engineering from the University of Waterloo. Today, Dr. Hind will be sharing with us his insights on business in the age of AI. Welcome, Dr. Hind. Over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. I want to start by thanking the people at Startup Reseau for giving me this opportunity to talk about business in the age of AI. To begin the talk, I want to address 3 topics that frequently arise when talking about AI and related to business. The first is the idea that AI will eliminate human jobs. This is in fact unlikely because human skills and AI strengths are complementary. AI can process data fast, accurately, and very, very patiently. Humans, on the other hand, are creative, they manage emotion well, and they understand ambiguity, which are challenges for AI machines. So in reality, with these complementary skills, AI is likely to change what humans do, but is in fact likely to make the jobs more interesting and more rewarding. Okay? A second area is the idea that AI is easy. AI is in fact not easy. People frequently ask me, what do I consider to be the skills necessary for somebody to be a good data scientist? My answer is somebody with a good understanding of calculus, linear algebra, probability and statistics, somebody who's a good computer programmer, understands big data, and communicates exceptionally well. Finding such a person is obviously somewhat of a challenge, but it's worth the effort. AI changes what is possible for us to do, right? Sorry. And when AI is viewed with IoT, and the 2 concepts are really inseparable, AI changes what we can achieve. IoT can supply sufficient data for us to understand incredibly complex problems. And then once that information has been supplied by the IoT sensors, AI makes that big data useful so that we can actually control those processes. Finally, the third thing that I want to address is that AI is inherently biased. AI is, in fact, extremely objective. The challenge is when creating an AI model, we need to train it very, very carefully and pay attention to the training sets that we're using to inform that model. In practice, if we train anything badly, a human or a artificial intelligence machine, the outcome is probably not going to be good. So let me dive into a little bit more detail of how AI is changing business. There are really 3 things that AI is doing. The first is the concept of personalization. With AI, we can match products or services to individuals in a very personal and individual way. In addition, AI is moving to concepts like sentiment analysis, where we can tailor the pitch to the individual or the group to whom the product or service is targeted. AI also helps with risk reduction. The real promise of AI is that with sufficient data and a sufficiently precise question, we can predict what is going to happen in the near-term future. If you can predict what is likely to happen in the near term, then there is substantial risk reduction, which is possible. For example, managing inventory or managing price variation. Additionally, the ideas of anomaly detection in AI allow prediction of failures and faults, and therefore the concept of preventative maintenance, which increases overall productivity. And then finally, the idea that when combined with Internet of Things, IoT, handling of very, very large systems that we previously could not hope to control becomes possible. Page down. I want to talk about how AI is affecting particular industries. So there are certain industries where the use of AI has become standard. We can think of these as mature. Online retail, insurance, banking, recruitment, hospitality, and travel have all been adopting AI for about the last 5 to 10 years. In the interest of time, I'm just going to talk about one of these. In the online retail space, if you visit a online marketplace, something like a Flipkart or an Amazon, you'll notice after a couple of visits that the products that are offered to you suddenly begin to have a very close alignment to your actual interests. This is on the basis of things like recommender systems, which really match buying patterns of individuals who are buying similar products, and therefore can give you a good idea of other products that you might be interested in. But AI goes further than that. With the concepts of sentiment analysis, we can tailor pitches. So, for example, if you're running an online car sales site, for some individuals, offering a distinctive pastel blue image of the vehicle may help the sale, whereas with other individuals, offering a sleek and powerful silver image of the same vehicle may be more successful in getting to the sale. We move on. There are certain industries, transport, particularly autonomous vehicles, energy, particularly renewable energy, gaming, manufacture, agriculture, and cybersecurity, where the adoption of AI is evolving fast, offering both opportunities and challenges. Again, I'd like to just talk about one of them, energy, which is the business that Quadrical is in, particularly providing services to the solar energy industry. Solar energy is changing considerably. In about 5 years ago, a 10 megawatt plant with about 50,000 solar panels was a large solar plant. Currently, in 2020, a 200 megawatt solar plant with about 1 million panels is fairly typical. When you have 1 million panels, it becomes impossible to have an individual visually inspect panels one by one, or even look at graphs of performance. If you want to detect underperforming panels or where there are actual problems, you need some guidance, and AI provides that. Equivalently, with AI, with solar energy becoming a significant provider of the energy in the world, solar energy prices have dropped substantially. This is resulting in a narrowing of margins and a necessity to keep the basically performance of the plants at their peak efficiency. Running a plant at 80 to 85% efficiency was possible 5 years ago, and it was possible still to make a profit. In 2020, you need to be running a plant at 90 to 95% efficiency in order to break even. So solar energy is not economical without the type of guidance that AI can give to identify where potential failures might occur and prevent those failures from actually occurring. The last area related to solar energy is the idea of grid stability. The US Energy Information Agency is giving a prediction that over 50% of the world's energy will be renewable by 2050. This is probably an underestimate. The AIA is a very conservative organization in its projections. But if we are to add substantial renewable energy into a national grid, we need to maintain stability. And that means providing accurate forecasts of the energy that is likely to be produced in the near future, the next day, 2 days, 3 days. When you combine those forecasts, which can only be produced by AI systems, then those forecasts combined with storage systems like batteries and pumped hydro enable the idea of a 100% renewable energy grid to become achievable. There are opportunities in other areas as well, professional fields like law, healthcare, education, emerging fields like biosciences, and even the crossover fields like creative arts, media, and marketing. Again, in the interest of time, just looking at one of the area, law. Corporate law is very much a standard process. There are documents like NDAs, terms and conditions, and agreements between companies that are largely boilerplate. AI is very good at extracting the key points from something like a letter of intent or an MOU and creating a boilerplate document. This doesn't mean that lawyers are going to become obsolete. In fact, lawyers add tremendous value to an engagement between companies in coming up with innovative and mutually fair ways of dealing with the particular challenges in a particular relationship. But by combining that law with AI, we can offload the non-productive tasks of just creating the document to an AI system, while we pay the high-priced lawyers to really add value to the discussion by solving those few unique problems which are special to the relationship in question. In general, that should enable more people to use lawyers, which would be a benefit in creating healthy relationships between companies. Okay. To end this talk, I want to just quickly recognize the fact that this is a startup bridge to Canada and talk a little bit about the Canadian market in the last 2 slides. The first thing to realize is Canada has had a substantial investment in AI. In fact, 2 of the world's key lead institutions, University of Montreal with Yoshua Bengio's group and the University of Toronto with Jeffrey Hinton's group, are leading academic sources of the ideas behind AI. Canada probably has the highest concentration of AI specialists to population, so highest per capita ratio, and therefore makes it a great place to do business, especially when AI is part of your business plan. One of the challenges is that the Canadian market is incredibly concentrated. Banking, insurance, energy, agriculture, high-tech, and natural resources make up a very, very large proportion of the overall Canadian marketplace. Banking and insurance, Canadian companies are world leaders, and they definitely intend to remain so in the age of AI with substantial investments. In the emerging areas like energy, agriculture, and high-tech that we've touched on, lots of activity, lots of potential investment there too. And even in the more traditional areas like natural resources, where the adoption of AI is in its infancy, there are opportunities there too. Of course, if you're an ambitious investor, the fact that the Canadian market is very concentrated means that there are a lot of greenfield areas for your great ideas. Sorry. Let me end by addressing a couple of specific challenges in Canada. The first is the idea of federalism. there are major regional differences in the markets. For example, if you're doing business in Quebec, the dominant language is French, and the law that you're going to be working with, the commercial law, is the Quebec Civil Code. If you do business in nearby Ontario, the dominant language is English, and the law is a much more familiar law to members of Commonwealth countries in that it has the common British influence. In BC, the business attitude is much closer to the markets in the west coast of the US, so Seattle and Silicon Valley, but with a distinctly Canadian favor. If you are planning on doing business in Canada, then having an understanding of your regional market is important. One of the benefits in Canada is the easy access to the huge US market. But this does introduce challenges in the sense that your competitors have an economy of scale and access to large and innovative US government funding programs, which can be challenging. Again, as a Canadian business, you need to have a US strategy. Third point is risk tolerance. Canadians are generally fairly cautious. There is great support for startups and good funding to get startups up and running. But growth capital can be extremely challenging. So having a strategy and an approach to acquiring growth funding is important to your longer term success. There's also some conservatism in new idea adoption. Persistence becomes important in dealing with this area. And then finally, to wrap up, I just wanted to address customer expectations. In Canada, we have some of the world's strongest privacy legislation. If your business involves the collection or use of personal information, then you certainly need to seek expert advice and pay attention to those restrictions. In Canada, we pride ourselves on egalitarianism. So if we have a product, then understanding how this might affect groups differently is also something that needs to pay attention. That said, Canada is a wonderful place to do business. And I hope for everybody listening who's considering opening a business in Canada, your journey to do business here will be as successful, as enjoyable as Quadrical's engagement in doing business in India. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Canada, your gateway to North America. And you will hear from Miryam Lazarte of LatAm Startups, Sudhiranjan Banerjee, Government of Alberta, and Sophie Chen, Invest Ottawa on the panel. Over to you, Apurva, to introduce the panelists and to take it from here.
Here, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are. Not that it matters. It's all now, time zones blurring into one past several months. Delighted to be here on behalf of the Indo-Canadian Business Chamber and supporting this wonderful initiative. Very timely in the sense of the changes that we are seeing in the external business environment. And therefore the need for new technologies and therefore new ideas coming through the startup ecosystem. The timing couldn't be better. So I'm delighted that we are doing this roadshow series. And again, on behalf of the Indo-Canadian Business Chamber, we feel privileged to be supporting and partnering with the organizers. I will let the three panelists introduce themselves as they speak. But I just want to say that at the chamber we have a vast cross section of members, and any of the people on today's session would like to have some more information, they can get in touch with us or through our website. With that, I will jump right into the session. In the interest of time, we have three excellent panelists with me, Miryam, Sophie, and Sudhiranjan. And I'm going to start, Miryam, right away with you. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience with startups in LatAm, and the segue that you provide for them into Canada. So over to you, Miryam.
Sure. Thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you for the organizers of South Sound Roadshow. My name is Miryam Lazarte. I'm the CEO of LatAm Startups. LatAm Startups is an organization as basically act as an accelerator in Toronto. We are supported by the City of Toronto, and we are a part of the Startup Visa program, which is the program that gives permanent residence for international startups to come to Canada and grow their business globally. So our mission basically is 100% supporting international startups to come to the country. So far in the last 4 years, we have been working with Latin America, but as well with many startups around the world, including India. So thank you so much for having me here.
Sure, thank you very much. And we'll go into more details, Miryam, about what your organization and how you support startups building the bridge, and what has been your experience. But let me go right over to Sophie. Sophie, you represent the Ottawa region. This is the national capital region of Canada. We all know that it is a real high-tech hub in Canada with a great history of number of startups coming back from the days when Nortel and some of the other companies were thriving, and out of that many entrepreneurs successfully took up various new ideas forward. So the Ottawa Kannada region is in that sense well known. So tell us, Sophie, about what's new and exciting in the national capital region, except of course we all know that it is snow time and you must be skiing on the Rideau Canal. But what else is happening in Ottawa in the area of startups and high tech?
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation for us to come to join this panel as well. Invest Ottawa is the national is the economic development agency based in the national capital region. You seem to know Ottawa very well based on its strength in the tax base. The good thing is Ottawa continues to lead the innovation in the country as the national innovation capital. So we are not just political capital, but we continue to be the leaders in innovation as the innovation capital of Canada. Like you mentioned, we were the headquarters of Nortel, but all the assets and the talent and engineers, the entrepreneurship, all stay in the city and continue to grow. And today's Ottawa is even doing more to lead a lot of areas in technology development in Canada. One of the most exciting one is the one we recently launched called Area X.0, which is the National Center for Smart City and Connected Autonomous Vehicle Testing Center, which is right located in the National Capital Region and directly owned and run by Invest Ottawa. So we operate directly at that center as an economic development agency, and we continue to work with all the 2,000 technology companies based in the region from several leading sectors, including communication technology sector, life sciences sector, software industries, and also defense, security, aerospace, clean tech, digital media. These are all the leading sectors in our region. On top of that, we are also developing cutting-edge technologies in the area I just mentioned, like autonomous vehicle, AI, IoT, all these cool technologies. So we are actually very excited to join the panel today to share more later.
Sure. Thank you, Sophie, and we'll come back to you for more. Sudhiranjan, you are in Delhi. You represent the province of Alberta in India. We of course know Alberta as a great oil and gas energy powerhouse. We also know Alberta as a great tourist destination thanks to the Rockies. But obviously there is a lot of work happening in Alberta in the high-tech area, and just given the dynamism of the province and the people, there is also a great startup ecosystem. You want to take us through that, Sudhiranjan?
Sure. Thanks, Apurva. The first and foremost, I would like to thank Ajay, Mitali, and Gaurav from Startup Réseau for inviting us, and thankfully Alberta is a partner to this important initiative, which is Startup Gateway to Canada. So yeah, I mean, let me talk a little bit about Alberta first, and so a lot of people may not be aware about Alberta as a province because generally the talk kind of veers around Ontario and BC. So I'm going to take a little bit of this opportunity to talk a little bit about Alberta. So we are a Western Canadian province, and as you very correctly pointed out, we are the leaders when it comes to energy and particularly oil, because Alberta has the third largest proven reserves of oil in the world. But in addition to that, we've also had or continue to have a robust agriculture sector, and a lot of commodities like wheat, flax, oat, and things of that sort are grown in the province. It's a prairie province. And in addition to that, of course, we have the standard edible oils and the processed foods and the gourmet foods. This is something that, and as you correctly said, it's a tourist destination. I mean, everybody knows about Banff and the national parks and things of that sort. But a lot of things that are not said about Alberta is that Alberta is also home to the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, which is part of the Pan-Canadian AI strategy. And the University of Alberta is also again housed in Edmonton. And the University of Alberta, together with the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, do a lot of path-breaking work on the AI side. Now, in terms of AI, again, AI is not related to a sector really, as we heard Dr. Hind talk about some of the sectors. So typically, if you look at Alberta's innovation ecosystem, you will see that AI is pretty much embedded in a lot of the historical sectors that we've worked on. For example, energy, in terms of oil, in terms of mining, you will see that AI is embedded there. Again, if I talk about agriculture, AI is even embedded in agriculture. So there's a number of startups which are working on the agriculture front, looking at things like supply chains, looking at the purity of the contents and things of that sort. In addition to that, of course, we also have a number of companies working on geospatial imaging, geosciences engineering. Now, geospatial imaging, geosciences engineering becomes really, really relevant in the context of Alberta because obviously it's an oil-rich province. And to be able to pinpoint and understand where you will find your resources, because you're going to spend billions of dollars trying to kind of dig into a place and find oil. So again, geospatial engineering, geosciences, typically very big, and artificial intelligence plays a big role on that particular front as well. Apart from that, big data, cybersecurity, machine learning, of course, I've spoken about, but also blockchain technology. Calgary is supposed to be the next hub for blockchain technology. So if you look at Alberta as a province, both Edmonton and Calgary, the two big cities in Alberta, have a very, very robust ecosystem. And you will see that most of the new technologies are being used to a very, very great extent for plugging these technologies into various sectors, starting from oil and gas to fintech to agriculture to defense and aerospace, transport, cybersecurity, you name it, and we have a startup working in that particular area.
Great, thank you. And again, we'll want to hear more about how India can fit into this wonderful description that you've given. But going back to you, Miryam, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with startups from LatAm, and maybe share some insights, some guidance that you could provide based on your experience?
Yeah, so it has been an interesting job that we have been doing in the last years, bringing international startups to the country. We have certainly, a number of startups that are really very talented. They are coming to, a country that is open arms for, new immigrants, new new Canadians that are coming to this country and are contributing to the second largest tech corridor in the world that we have here. So those international startups usually are technology companies that basically are already growing in sales and funding in their own home countries, and basically they are taking Canada as a next step to go to global markets. All of them are coming with intellectual property. They are coming also, to get access not just to, of course, the Canadian market, but the US market, Europe, and Asia. So Canada really, has become one of the most important gateways for international startups, especially right now, because of the, let's say, regional situation we have in North America. Canada is bringing great opportunities for international startups to relocate, maybe have second headquarters here, and have great opportunities to access one of the most fabulous ecosystem and strong ecosystems we have. As you probably, all of you have seen in the different videos, and the keynote speaker, he talked about the different technologies we have in the different regions in Canada. Of course, Ontario, Alberta, British Columbia, Quebec, all of us have very strong straits, and it will depend where startups, would like to locate in order to grow faster, maybe to have resources that will make them competitive. But at this point, we have startups located in different incubators and accelerators, not just in Ontario, but also in other provinces, in Canada. So I think we so far have been successfully integrating startups to the ecosystem. Since 2017, we have been working with over 100 startups that have been a part of the programs. But they are very talented people, and we are very happy to work with them.
Sure. Thank you, Miryam. Let me stay with you because you brought out some very good points. And if I'd please ask you to expand on, what the startups have been able to do once they come to Canada. What is the soft landing that they can find, and what has been their experience scaling up, Miryam?
Yeah, so it has been challenging because for any international startups entering to North America, I will say this in between US and Canada, they have to kind of pivot their business a lot. Let's say sometimes coming from, emerging markets, coming to a mature market, they have to really focus in a vertical in order to be successful in a country like Canada. So they have been able to secure investment, to secure grants, to secure a permanent residence for some of them. So that gives them, a little bit of stability to grow their companies. So probably you guys know, for example, here in Toronto, we have the #1 business incubator rank, as part of the university. They are the #1 in the world. We have the #1 accelerator in the world as well in Waterloo, in between the corridors. We have the #1 or the largest urban tech innovation hub, which is Mars Discovery District, and we have the largest in square meters IoT center, which is Catalysis 137 in Waterloo. So there are different, access to different innovation centers, accelerators, incubators, and talent, not just here in Ontario, but around the country. And they have been able to secure, mentorship from them, investment from the province, and sometimes investment from the federal government in terms of grants. They have been also able to hire local talent, which is very much, appreciated in around the world, because we have amazing talent here from universities, recent graduates, people that, are incredibly smart and that complement those companies very well in order to help them to grow.
Sure. Thanks. Very useful. Some very good points that you brought out, Miryam. The fact that different provinces as well as the federal government have programs to support startups, including funding and so on. So I think these are some very good takeaways for our participants here on this session. I'll also similarly request Sophie to let us know what does your organization particularly do to support startups, and then we'll go to some of the things that you may have been doing in India and other parts of the world to support startups, Sophie.
Sounds good. So, like what Miryam mentioned in Toronto, in Ottawa, as the innovation capital, we are doing quite a lot, to help the startup and entrepreneurship and the development of innovation is always the same in the city. So, at Invest Ottawa, we also run a downtown center called the Bayview Yard Innovation Center. So this center is very unique and is the largest in the National Capital Region, and we use that as the meeting space and incubation acceleration space for our local companies to continuously support the growth of the startups in the region, all the way from early stage to high growth stage. And also we work with all the PSIs in the region, the Carleton University of Ottawa, and Algonquin College and Lazarte College. They all have their own innovation centers and applied research centers, which are key to the ecosystem to help us build a very strong startup, ecosystem for them to grow. On top of that, the National Capital Region, what's unique here, we are also the home of more than 65 national research institutes and national research labs. So that's something we offer as a unique value in the city for startups to benefit from. Because in other cities, they are either regional or city-based organizations, but we have quite a lot of national-based organizations. Like the biggest one is NRC. It's headquartered here with more than 10,000 scientists and engineers here. They offer very good support to work with the startup companies to commercialize the technologies from those leading technology institutes and national research labs. And they also get funding from all these organizations when they develop their products and services. So as you know, for startups, the biggest challenge when they start is mainly two things. They don't have the funding to help them. They don't have the resources, both on the human resources side and other resources such as R&D and all this, ecosystem support. And we offer all of them through all these connections in the National Capital Region. So that's really key for them to continue grow and thrive here in the National Capital Region. On top of that, Invest Ottawa is also taking extra steps to initiate new strategic areas. For example, I mentioned the area Export O. It's one of its kind in North America, and it's the only national center for connected autonomous vehicle testing in the true next generation 5G environment. So we took 1,800 acres of land in Ottawa. Nowadays, those lands are not easy to get, especially in the city boundaries. We offered 1,800 acres of land in a private environment, and we use that land to support all the startup companies and the leading technology development companies to develop next generation solutions for autonomous vehicles, connected vehicles, smart agriculture, precision agriculture, smart city solutions. And we also released that to the public roads already last year in September. There is a downtown core Kulkarni pasture, which is a federal government campus, and the newly developed light rail station is right located there. So we are the first city in Canada launched public autonomous vehicle bus. That's the shuttle bus running between the light rail station and the federal government campus. And it has been running for a while, since September last year. Even during pandemic and the COVID lockdown, nothing stops us from continuously providing all this support and services. So these are really exciting for startup companies in India to know, and I can share more later about how we support all the global companies, the startup companies coming to Alpha. Because Invest Alpha is also a designated organization to a startup visa program. So we work with all the startup companies coming here in the city to develop their Canadian office or their North American office. I hope that's helpful.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Sophie, for that. That's very impressive. Not only the fact that Ottawa has this history of technology innovation, but the fact that you're the nation's capital region, you're leveraging some of the national institutions like NRC, which are based out of Ottawa. And providing all the support. What is we of course know we mentioned Nortel at the beginning. There are so many great names that have come from the Ottawa region. Corel and the Sir Terry Walsh's suite of companies. So many of those blockbuster successes have come from Ottawa region. What is new and exciting? Who are the? I understand there was recently a new acquisition announced in Ottawa by Warner Brothers. Can you shed some light about that? And who else? What else is? What are some of the exciting examples that you could share with us?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to share that. Like you mentioned, the most recent one, which happened last week, it's a company called UITV. It was acquired by Warner Brothers, and it's actually more than $100 million deal. So that's actually very exciting for startups here, because UITV started in Ottawa with 10 people, like very small team. Now it's quickly scaling up, becoming one of the leading companies in the region, and now it's successfully got acquired. So that's not just the only one. We have a whole bunch of these good examples. Like Shopify is another one. Many people now, I think Shopify now has an office in India as well. It's the largest e-business company in Canada. But many people don't know that Shopify started in Ottawa as well as a startup, like 10 people in Ottawa, very small companies, trying to sell snowmobile, like the snow equipment, online. That's how they started, which is very Canadian, because that's our specialty for winter sports and everything. And then they started in Ottawa as a small team. They actually went down to Silicon Valley to raise capital, and then they realized, well, Ottawa has very good talent, and the engineers here in Ottawa cost less than what they would, do in Silicon Valley. Our salary for software engineers is probably almost 1/3 of what they would pay in Silicon Valley. On top of that, the competition is also fierce when they scale up from like 50 to 100 and going beyond 100 employees in Silicon Valley. They see the growth pains. So they made a big decision. They decided to come back to Ottawa. And since then, they quickly start from 100 people to 2,000 people in the last several years, and also became the largest IPO in Canada for the software companies category. So that's a very good success story to encourage global startup companies to come here, because we have produced success and continuously produce success like that. Other examples like Halogen Software, Connexis, they all get acquired by US companies when they grow like to more than 200 employees. They all grow really well. And another homegrown company called QNX. People probably don't know the name, but if I talk about Mercedes-Benz, BMW, all these luxury cars like Porsche, QNX is the leading supplier of operating software operating system for the luxury cars in the connected and autonomous function. So it also started in Ottawa as a startup, very small one. And then it quickly became the tier 1 player in its space. Now it's actually a world-renowned company And they recently received the funding from the government, the federal government, more than $100 million to run the National Center for R&D, focusing on autonomous vehicle, and it's headquartered here. Now it's part of BlackBerry. I forgot to mention that. Also, that's part of the proof of their success when they develop. I don't think I have enough time to talk about a lot of examples here in the short panel discussion here, but these are really the exciting things, stories to share with the audience.
Sure, thanks, Sophie. Let us quickly move on then to Sudhiranjan. Tell us about what our participants can expect from your great province, Sudhiranjan, especially with respect to India.
Okay, so a lot has been said, and let me just first say this, that all of Canada has a lot of the things that both Miryam and Sophie talked about. Great talent, a great innovation ecosystem, and there's great universities working on a number of things. So if I were to just kind of put it in a nutshell, I would say that you will get all of that in Alberta that you will get in some of the other provinces of Canada, but a little more. What is that little more? Of course, I've spoken about the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute. I've spoken about the University of Alberta, the University of Calgary. There are lots of projects being done. The government, DeepMind, a Google company, has set up its first headquarter in Edmonton. And then, of course, there are great incubators like Tech Edmonton, Calgary Economic Development. So all of that is also happening in Alberta. Again, if you talk about autonomous vehicles, so I don't want to kind of repeat a lot of the things that have been said, but let me just focus on some of the little more aspect. Now, the first and the foremost important point that I would think about is the tax advantage. Alberta has a very, very distinct tax advantage because it's got one of the lowest corporate tax rates, the lowest personal income tax rate. It has no payroll tax and it has no sales tax, which means that if you're doing business in Alberta or if you're incorporated or registered in Alberta, your profits are going to be much higher as compared to what it is going to be in another province. That's number one. Number two, Alberta is also far, far, far more affordable as compared to some of the other provinces, let's say BC or even Ontario to some extent. The affordability or the cost of living in a city like Calgary, which is the best city to live in North America at this point in time, is far, far more affordable as compared to a Vancouver or a Toronto. And someone who's looking to move to Canada on a permanent basis, set up a business there, needs to understand the cost of affordability or the cost of living as well. So from that standpoint, again, I would say Alberta comes out on top. The third point I would like to refer to is the education levels of the people in Alberta. So if you're looking to find skilled manpower, that is where I would say Alberta scores again, because universities like the University of Alberta, the University of Calgary, Bow Valley, then there is other institutes like NATE and SATE, which are able to produce top class talent in the province. And whether you're working on energy, whether you're working on cybersecurity, whether you're working in agriculture, there is a research institute to back you up, and there is an institute to help you supply with the skilled manpower that you're looking to get. And finally, I would also say that there is a number of government incentives that are available to people who are setting up their business in Alberta. I mean, of course, there is the standard federal incentives that are available, but just to kind of give that a little bit of a push, the government of Alberta has now instituted something called the Invest Alberta Corporation. The Invest Alberta Corporation's mandate is very simple. We are trying to help Indian businesses come to Alberta and set up businesses in Alberta across a number of sectors. It doesn't matter which sector you are from, we are sector agnostic. What we are trying to do here is that we are trying to help Indian entrepreneurs find a conducive business environment in the Albertan market. How are we doing that? So we are literally kind of hand-holding them in terms of A, finding a market for their product, B, helping them with the incubators, C, helping them finding funds for their project, linking them and hooking them up with angel investors, with incubators, and so on and so forth. We are also helping them commercialize, and we are also helping them scale up. So that's one of the challenges that we have seen that a number of startups face. In the initial stages, of course, it's all easy, it's all good to go. But the challenge comes in when you really have to kind of scale up and start commercializing your technology for a market such as the US or probably Europe. So that's where the advice that people get from mentors, from people within Invest Alberta, or even people from within other agencies that are associated with us. I think that's really invaluable for people because they are getting advice from people who have done this and who know what the pitfalls or the hurdles can be. So I would say that those are really the four important points as to why someone should consider Alberta. Just to give you a bit of an example, I mean, we've been participating in other such events over the past couple of years. And every year, all the companies that have visited Alberta have not only shown promise, but quite a few of them have actually gone on to set up in Alberta. So I would say that, remember the fact that there is a huge tax advantage in Alberta. It is majorly affordable as compared to the other cities. It is great living standards, as because Calgary and Edmonton are some of the best cities to live in the world. And finally, you will get the talent that you're looking for, and it's going to be backed up by credible, serious research. And finally, it's a beautiful place. That's just like icing on the cake. So,
thank you. That's a great pitch. I suspect people are already looking at their airline ticket portals, trying to see how soon they can get to Alberta, and of course that also speaks true of the Ottawa region and in Canada in general. There are a couple of questions here, well, more than a couple, but a couple that we can pick up. I'll start with a question that Shruti has posed here in the chat window about what stage should startups come to Canada, and what is the traction sales ARR, and how much money should they budget, and so on. Of course, Shruti, this is going to be very different on a case-to-case basis, but in general, let us see if Miryam, who has helped firms like you, can provide some broad guidance as to when are you ready to go to Canada.
Sure. And yeah, that's a question that we get a lot. And let me tell you that I've been having the opportunity to actually live in different places in Canada, from Vancouver to Montreal to Toronto. So the cost of living in a city certainly is relevant for any international startup, but you have to balance somehow, the cost of living around, the resources that you can have for your startup. Again, if you are a startup in certain sector, you may like to move or live in certain areas in Canada. So don't take it that, one city has it all. I think there are cities that have some straits and some others that may have better resources than others, depending of the sector, technology sector that they are moving. So being said that, we have seen startups when they come, to Canada with less than $200,000 or, around that amount, they struggle they struggle for the first year, because is the first year, I believe, in what we have seen, is the most difficult year when they are establishing, understanding, the structure, understanding the resources that they have. They have to spend a lot of money, not just in, where they live or what they are renting, but also in the operational part of the company. And, there are resources and grants around, but when you are not permanent resident of Canada, you cannot access necessary to those resources immediately. So while you are processing your permanent residence, you have a work permit, you have any other type of visa, that kind of limited, the access to those resources. Even for investors, and we are part of NACO, which is the National Angel Capital Organization, which is the largest investment angel network in Canada. Investors in Canada tend to be more conservative than investors in the US. Being said that, they need to see some traction locally, and when I say locally, it could be US, Canada, in order to invest in those companies. So I believe for companies that don't have enough funding, besides people can tell you otherwise, it will be challenging if you don't have at least $200,000, to start your year with some kind of funding. People can tell you 50,000, 20,000. People can come with crazy numbers because of where they live or what they can save. But seriously, we have startups located again in Vancouver. We have startups in Edmonton. We have startups in Montreal. We have startups in Ottawa. And everyone, their challenge is the first year. So I wouldn't risk to come with a company without to have that funding available around.
Sure, thank you very much. And as somebody has just noted in our chat window, that's a great practical advice. Let me ask before we round up, if Sophie, you and Sudhiranjan if there is one piece of advice in the same direction that Miryam spoke about that you want to leave behind with our participants. Sophie, what is that one thing that participants should do as they consider Ottawa region?
Well, Miryam made a good point in her talk about the resources challenging for the startup companies, the foreign startup companies coming to Canada in the first year. So one thing I want to highlight on top of everything I talked so far, we actually offer a very special program called the Global Runway. It is a program that will offer all the foreign companies, including startup and the bigger ones, one-stop shop service package when they come to our city, which is very important because not many cities will offer this kind of in-house care. We do that. This package includes not only a landing space inside our own innovation center for global companies, but also offer all the support and the network they may need in their first year or the initial transition period, because they don't know anyone. Like Miryam said, they have a working permit, so they may not access enough resources like the local companies. But in Ottawa, we don't have that difference. Even though it's not about funding, but the type of package we offer as a one-stop shop service will give them peace of mind and make them feel at home when they come to our city, and they will be offered a landing spot, a shared office space right away as a registered office address so that they can start run their business right away. We help from all the incorporation process, the hiring process, if they need the accounting and tax consultant to discuss how they can benefit from the tax advantages here. If they need R&D resources, need the introduction to a local business network, they can actually be mingled right into the local ecosystem from day one when they are in our hands. So that's something I want to leave behind for the companies to know, because I think that's very unique package offered by Invest Ottawa. And our organization, Invest Ottawa, is actually the only organization in Canada that has both the startup function and also the foreign investment function under one roof as the economic development agency. Most of the other cities offer this through different organizations, but we have it under one roof from early stage all the way to global companies. Anything you may need can be addressed in one team in our team. So that's very helpful in terms of resources planning and introduction to the local ecosystem.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks again, Sophie. There are some people who have put down their interest in the chat window, and I would recommend that they get in touch with our three experts one-on-one, given the specific interest that you have, which are ranging from molecular biology to some agriculture technology, and so on. So I'll leave that in the capable hands of our three panelists. But I do want to thank each one of them for taking the time and going into this detail. Obviously, this session is too short for what they actually can describe as in terms of bringing to the table for you. So I do encourage you to get in touch with Miryam, Sophie, and Sudhiranjan directly. Please take your interest forward through them.
Again, right now, after hearing very insightful discussions with Dr. Hind, with the panel right now, I think what we're all waiting for is what is it that we are actually, what is it all these 4 roadshows are leading to. So let me come to the core of the program. Startup Bridge Canada is a 6-week pre-market entry startup program allowing up to 50 high-potential growth stage India-headquartered startups to access and understand Canada and to build out their North American strategy. We are seeking to select B2B software, enterprise tech, deep tech startups that are well geared for an international expansion and looking to set up a base in North America. Startup Bridge Canada is a mentorship-driven program comprising virtual workshops, keynote sessions, and access to a network of accelerators, founders, investors, corporates, universities, and economic development agencies. Over the duration of 6 weeks, which is basically going to start from mid-Feb until end March, selected startups will be engaged in 8 to 12 hours of cumulative interactions per week, thereby totaling in excess of 50 hours of live programming, in addition to other resources. We have onboarded over 40 local mentors from Canada, including successful entrepreneurs, investors, heads of startup programs, former diplomats, and industry experts. To add to that, we have 15 local partners that will be ably support the cohort. Our website, www.startupbridge.in, is informative, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to my colleague Gaurav or myself. For those in attendance, we strongly urge that you all attend all the 4 upcoming roadshows as well, as this will only help you to understand the market better and make an informed decision on applying to the program.